wonderful listeners. This is Riley letting you know that this is part 2 of a 2-part episode. So if you haven't listened to last week's, you might want to go back and start there for context. This is also going to just jump right in, so get ready for part 2 of this episode. Thanks for listening. Yeah, I think that it is about timing and also why it's hard, I think, to be like, oh, permanent or no, because sometimes I think people like to know very dogmatically. Think about even with celebrities, people will be like, okay, wait, but is Miley Cyrus California sober, or like she doesn't smoke weed, and we're invested in people's choices in that way, or if someone's a vegan, and then it's like, wait, do they eat meat? I think that that's a natural sort of curiosity because we are wondering what's going on. What are your guys' choices that you're making? But it's usually more productive in terms of just being true to yourself and what you're going through to notice, oh, I feel like this is maybe a transformative time for me. I'm kind of thinking about my use of this in a different way. That's not to say anything is cut into stone. It's just I'm ready for that in my life, and I think this is a time where that makes a lot of sense to me, where you and I are going through some bigger, like, whoa, I'm noticing myself changing as a person, and really am present for experiencing these different stages. I feel like I always am a curious person, and as I've grown up, I think I remember this feeling at lots of different points in life when I was like, I definitely think between middle school and high school, I'm like, I am conscientious about some radical perspective shifts that I'm going through, and I'm still the same person in a lot of ways, but I'm getting to know myself more and more as the years go on. And I think it's so cool and good to be aware of and listening to yourself with those things. And it's so nice that you and I have a buddy where I'm like, Quinn and I are on the same page too, because that will make it all the easier if we're together and like, oh my gosh, I'm in the mood to collage and I actually don't feel like having weed right now would be additive. But then sometimes it is like, okay, now we're just chilling. Maybe that would be additive, and we'll do it when that feels right.
Yes. This is... do not stop and get it twisted and think that Quinn and Riley are coming out saying, no longer is this us. But it's been a long time in my life at this point that I have felt a little bit a CSC.
Así, así.
Más o menos about my usage at times, where there have been, of course, you can form a habit, because especially if you're smoking anything, like it's an oral fixation thing that builds, that's very easy to just be like, oh, this started out a little less, even though I did not feel physical addiction to weed. Yeah. I did not have withdrawals whatsoever, like going from smoking quite a bit to literally not at all. Like, personally, I'm not saying that can't happen. That's my experience. However, I know that some of the conditioning that I was doing about weed, which you always made me feel, Riley, just like you always have in all of my things in life, made me feel safe and comfortable and supported, and that you would say, like, it's not about public perception, it's not about how other people think, as long as you're feeling good about it. And that was definitely feedback that made me look inward and be like, can I honestly say I'm feeling good about it? Because, like, I know in my truth and in my heart when it's like you a little bit have the tinge of like, Yeah, I kind of like I'm doing this thing and I don't want to make myself feel guilty or ashamed because that's not going to help me grow and it's not useful or kind or productive, but definitely was growing in that like irritated feeling where I was like, I just kind of feel like I'm making this choice just because it's a choice I've made and a lifestyle I've had, and I'm just a bit like going through this up and down cycle where there would be times where it was more manageable and times where it was just like, oh yeah, I kind of, for whatever reason, it ramped up and then it just like kept up on that um, page that was not feeling like being my truest self and living in my power. It was like, I can think of so many times over the past couple of years that I smoked that I was like, I wish I hadn't just done that. Like I just compulsively did that because I wanted something to do and did that, and it did not add to the task I was doing. It did not make me feel happier. It did not make me feel more aligned, less stressed. Like in fact, a lot of the times specifically when I was not intentional and I rushed into that decision for literally altering your state of mind. I didn't have intentional time. I didn't stop and pause and really give myself room to consider my actions. And it's because of, often it was probably because of busyness or because of stress piling on. And then that would actually be a compounding factor that I was like, I'm actually more anxious now and stressed and don't feel aligned because I just rushed into a decision for something that I don't even feel right about. Like,
Yeah. I think you put that so well. Thank you for sharing that because I know it certainly I can relate to that in many different contexts of decision making where you notice, okay, I'm doing this and I know I can tell when I am like, ugh, I don't really feel right about this. I'm not in alignment with it. And that's great to then be realizing. And now we can just alter course. It's not to say I'll never have that feeling again, but when you're more aware of something that even if you're aware of it, I think you and I have both had plenty of times where it's like, oh yeah, I'm aware of that, and yet I still do it, and whatever it is that makes something be the flip switch that changes. One might say if you have found a deeper well, and
yeah.
and what a
Like
great
Casey
thing.
being Casey Musgrave saying, I used to wake and bake, and then everyone's like, oh, Casey does not smoke weed anymore. And she on stage
It's like
in
not the
Colorado was
point.
like, did I say that? Hello? I said I used to wake and bake, and now I realize that that doesn't add to every single thing I do. And
Yeah,
that's,
don't need to start the day just making a choice out of habit every day, and that is
yeah,
such a good thing to remember in so many ways. And I think anything can be patterned so much like that. People getting on their phones in bed. Let me tell you, I said to Quinn earlier today, I wish I could brick the weed because then I wouldn't just do it out of like in a habit way, which has helped immensely with my phone where I have my set schedule. Guess how many times I have been on my phone in or around my bed recently? Zero, because I truly am like, oh, I treat it as if it's not an option. I am not like, oh, okay, I'm gonna go and unbrick and do this and then brick back up. I'm like, no, these are the hours that I decided that I do not use my phone. And that is a little bit different than what we're talking about with the weed because it's not as cut and dry, but there are certain things that I feel like can be as cut and dry, and Brayden always reminds me that decision making creates a lot of fatigue in our brains, and we are of course wired to want something that gives you serotonin, oxytocin, any of these things
dopamine.
that dopamine. Yeah, exactly. So of course, if you're just like, huh, should I, there's a little half of a joint sitting out there with a lighter right next to it. Okay, I will go take a puff of that. Like, of course you can't feel like, oh my gosh, that's like if there's a tower of treats nearby at all points in time to be like, and I'd never walk by and take one. Like, come on, please. That, of
A
course, is gonna
tower of
happen.
treats nearby. How can I make this happen? I am cooking
You
up
can come to
solutions
my
for
house.
that. Riley and I are like, this is how we're telling you that we are replacing the weed with baked goods. Anytime we have the compulsion, we will eat a cookie.
Also, of
I like
course,
that.
it's not always all about this. Mental health and all of those things matter too. And physically, do Quinn and I know and recognize, and have we said, yes, smoking is not good for you. This is a known thing. I don't care that it's weed, guys. We all know this. Do I think of the little eggs existing inside my uterus that I'm like, okay, I need to be taking care of you guys too. People might think, oh, like women feel that way, whereas men with their regenerative sperm, I understand that frustration, but this is a reality, and I think the reality is that more women and people with uteruses are up to the responsibility that it is of always taking care of your potential future, even if you don't want to have um babies. Obviously there's health benefits, but as someone that I do hope to one day get pregnant, I think that it's fair to talk about that is something that crosses
Mm-hmm.
my mind when I'm with any sort of health choice. I'm like, okay, with your body, it's one thing to be like, you know what, sometimes I will take the L and decide that if I age worse because of this or my vessel doesn't last as long, fine. But then when I think about my baby and the love that I have for the Roger that I am raising, I'm like, oh, yeah, I would treat you guys exponentially with more care, which is a good reminder of worthiness work, I guess, to be like, you should
Mm-hmm.
treat yourself as the top priority too. It's so
Yeah,
ingrained
because
in
you're
me.
somebody's baby,
I am
mom.
somebody's baby and they love me so very much, it's intimidating.
And mom has been so good about not making us feel guilty about smoking, but being like, do you guys ever think about that maybe you could use edibles? And we're like,
But the thing is
yes.
it's like, yes, and that is it is so much different. That's
Yeah.
the damn of it, that you're like, yeah, I've
But
thought about it and I've tried.
we are both people that edibles works great for, and as
Yes.
I've shared, my edible, like, what I am most excited for this break to end, and I know that could sound like a diet because it's just like, oh, cooking up ready for this break to end. No, I feel very comfortable with that. We set a break, and that I feel very comfortable and empowered. Our whole conversation today is that the break is going to really inform the decisions we make, and I am not at all like 2 month break back to life as we knew it, but
Mm-hmm.
I will be hunkering down with a little 5 milligrams of an edible because Lord knows that will be plenty. A little indica edible and cozying in my blanket and watching a funny movie. Sorry, like that is a godly experience in my mind. I
Yes.
love that, and that's one of my favorite ways to use weed. But obviously, when you're in the I want to smoke category and mindset and moment,
Yeah.
it's like, no, it's not the same to be like, hey guys, like let's circle up and have a joint circle, but actually here's just a tiny piece of a gummy for us each to put in our mouth for 3 seconds before we swallow.
Normalize that it's like, okay, circle up and now we each have our half of the gummy and then we're like, we're gonna be vibing in half an hour or so.
Yeah.
Which I
We
like that. Hey, start the gathering this way, then we can have some convos. We haven't immediately gotten stoned, so we were like, oh, catching up, and then okay, now we're cozying down. Honestly, maybe that's unlocking something really good. And I
Yeah,
do
I
think in a
like
group
that.
setting, an edible often, like, I love when it's like, oh, just truly a little bite, a quarter or a half of an edible with friends. It's like to me as if everyone had a glass of wine, but since a lot of the times our family is less like, okay, we're gonna have alcohol. Not that I don't also have a cocktail or whatever, but that can be such a fun experience that I'm not going to say, and then I'm not going to do that anymore. But I think there are times where I am like, yes, because everyone else is in on it, and I'm going to be more prone to be like, oh no, if that doesn't feel like that's what I'm going for that day or night.
Mm-hmm. But even that to me, like us being not us exposing our stoner family, Dad,
I
are you
said
comfortable
nothing.
with us sharing that me, the exposer, Dad coming up to us, um, do you guys want to split a halfer? So
Yeah.
cute and sweet and such a form of love language that I will happily take in. And
Yes.
is there ever pressure from him? No, it's never ever
No.
like a come on. He's just like, do he's just a
It's
host.
being
He's just
I was gonna say being polite. That is a
yeah,
polite host.
being a good host, and it's with no expectation. And also, most of the time, he doesn't even come with it in his hand. He asks, "Would you like that?" And
And then it
then
will be
will
retrieved.
will retrieve if you say yes.
That
Very
is an
green
appropriate way
flag.
to offer things to people, you guys, and not thrust it upon them, but find out first with
Yeah.
curiosity and openness.
But that
And
also is a way that, like, usually that type of use is for me much more gratifying and much more
yeah,
grounded, and I actually feel more aligned with it than it being like, holy shit, I have such a long list of things to do at
yeah.
home today. I'm going to smoke because this is the thing
I
I can
think
access easiest.
Yeah, I think that sometimes can be more for me of the vibe where I'm like, oh, but I like that a little bit. And it's like, yeah, it's because you get to unwind when you have these chores you need to do or whatever, but it doesn't actually help the chores and the mindset. It's not, again, cut and dry, but often I will find like, oh, now I'm trying to organize and be functioning in a specific way, and that sometimes is not the right vibe for that, where you're like,
Yeah.
this makes me want to take a little sit or do some collage or something like this, but I'm trying to just like dial in, so let me set myself up for success in those moments so then I can enjoy the other moments.
And we can honor Mary Jane and honor Quinn and Riley and our own little minds we were blessed with. And that's the thing is I am very grateful to say I've never had trouble not enjoying my life when I'm sober. Or
Mm-hmm.
I could take out the not. I am very grateful that sobriety doesn't
Is
affect
a
if I
very
enjoy my
joyful
life.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, like I really have great coping skills for getting through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I feel like I haven't at all been living this. So far, it's been over a month, just over a month that we've been sober. And I feel like it isn't at all that I'm like, "Ugh, yeah, I just haven't been having as high of highs. Like, no, I feel
You have heard
amazing.
on the podcast, we have been having a blast.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I feel really empowered about it because if anything, like I have explained this to Sean that I was like, if anything, my previous usage was making me feel more anti about weed because I was putting it into this system in my life that too much of the time was not adding and was a compulsory behavior that wasn't serving the greater good. And it is great to have a buddy along because I will say when you are in an environment where the mindset, whether it's about weed or alcohol or anything, even if it's just about negative thinking, if it's about constant gossip, like being around a group of people that are very form that almost they've come together for this shared thing. Like, if you don't have this, then it's not really hitting the same. That can make it really hard to be showing up and being your best decision making self. So I'm grateful because of the circles I'm in at this point in my life. Bunny, leave it. Ah, yes. He was trying to give his tail another serious haircut. That's not
so
time for that.
that way.
Good boy. Yeah, so I feel like we can be so supported in this.
I totally agree. And what a good feeling. I hope this season and on. You know what? Not only around your weed use, this is a good time. We are at the first quarter of the year. We should check in, or no, not quarter, third of the year. So it's a good time to check in on a little, how do I feel about things in general? Do I feel like my routine's working for me? Am I incorporating creative time that makes me feel fulfilled? And doing a little inventory of how you're doing, how you're feeling, and keep checking in with yourself so you can stay on top of your wellness and not get to the end of the year of the horse feeling absolutely trampled and burnt out. We do not want that.
No. We want the horses to start moving with us, flowing with us.
It's like
we're at liberty.
If this is this is a good thing to notice, you guys. If a horse wants to go over and then fully drop their head and just let their neck down, and they like to release or generally be relaxed, that's how our horses want to feel at the end of at the end of everything. At the end of every day, a year, and life. Just that we were able to relax the tension. You can do this.
I am grateful to have this type of discussion because I think that there should be that type of openness, because when things like this, like, I think how much in the world around us marijuana usage felt hush hush, it did not encourage like the most positive relationship with it I could have. And I think being able to be honest and transparent and non-judgmental about the different circumstances people might find themselves in when navigating this type of a relationship, it should be celebrated that things change and you have an evolving mindset. And I really am grateful and excited because this break, like Riley said, I mean, the physical aspect of it, of smoking, that is a big thing that was really getting me down, because first of all, I have the knowledge, so I think mentally that was affecting me. And I would also notice going on a run, and I would notice waking up in the morning how my lungs felt. I'm extremely sensitive, so my sore throat. I live in such a dry climate where the dust is already such a problem, and I have terrible allergies, and to add that on top and just feel miserable for what? Wasn't worth it. And what I want to cap this episode with is that Riley and I feel like our smoking moving forward is going to be much more, this sounds crazy, romanticized. What we mean is when we are making...
You saying that makes me feel like, oh my gosh, maybe we did already talk about this a little bit on the podcast with our...
No.
Okay.
We talked about it together.
Okay.
So basically, sorry. But we just didn't record it. we would like to now, because we are going to have the smoking part of it be so much fewer and farther between, that when we do make that choice, it is going to feel elevated and romantic, like the fish bong that that I brought up last episode, and
a rose cone.
Yeah, a rose cone. I think we have shared about the rose cones before,
Yes,
many moons ago on the podcast, but or something that is more elevated and natural and feels intentional.
There's twine there to light it instead of just the lighter of butane.
Well, I'm telling you, either using a hemp wick or a match does makes me feel better than using the butane to the gullet. But
so don't worry, you can still get tips from Quinn or I anytime. And oh my gosh, I am so excited.
And we're not saying don't invite us to be part of your smoke circle. We're just letting you know that we may respectfully accept or decline. Or we're happy to stand there even if we're not taking a hit.
Yeah. Also, though, like you said, capping this off one more time, I do feel like social scenarios usually for me feel less of the problem. I look forward to having like times that are social with people in that way. I think that there are maybe times where you can say that it was not only you can say, I can, I mean anyone, where I've been like, oh yeah, but social because this is a group of friends from work, that it's a daily sort of thing, is different than a social situation of a once in a while get together that we would know when it feels in tune and aligned, and can also just try to spend time beforehand deciding if I'm in a scenario where I think like, oh, I'm gonna see these friends, we might do that, let me first, before I'm there on the spot, check in and set an intention for that. We, regardless, hope that you are having a wonderful spring season, and thank you, Quinn, again, for leading a more open conversation about just, I think, any sort of substance use. Even though weed is more spoken about now, it's still vulnerable to talk about, and people with their alcohol use, people with how they choose to eat food to cope, like, all those things are things that we go through, but still can be hard to put on the table. So I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Me too. We will talk to you next Tuesday. Goodbye.